Hello and welcome to another edition of Drogheda District Chamber Taking Care of Business. Our guest today is Mick Fanning. Oh, by the way, I'm Michael Gerard, and Mick Fanning is from Physio Performance. Mick, how are you?
I'm very good, Michael.
So, listen, when did you set up this Physio Performance? How old is the business?
Yeah, the business is 12 years old, just there, just gone. And yeah, I started with an old cranky physio bed, bought off Dundee in the parents' spare bedroom, getting down a few friends and a few footballers from the team, and yeah, just have built the practice up ever since. Started with a treatment room where we're in our old place in Gym Plus. And developed that through then with a second treatment room and another physio, and then we moved into our purpose-built building here in the North Business Park 4 years ago, which has expanded to have kind of 4 treatment rooms. We've 3 physios, we've a deep tissue massage specialist, a personal trainer. We were fully equipped gym with state-of-the-art technology, and yeah, that's been the journey in a nutshell.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm just walking into the building. I mean, you said you're here 4 years. I mean, I've been driving past this building for years and years, and it was sort of, run down and stuff. So were you looking for something this size and sort of central enough for a long time, or what sort of made you pick this building? Because it's absolutely fantastic what you've done inside and a whole lot. Like, I mean, it's really high spec and stuff. Was there much work to be done to it?
Yeah, no. I think, over a number of years, probably 5, 6 years ago, even 7 years ago, there was always an ambition to, I'll call it purpose-built physio. I had a vision for, I suppose, what I wanted my physio clinic, or what I feel we get best results, and that's with movement and exercise, So to have this space where we can do we'll call it our physio work in traditional that people will understand in the room, but then also promoting exercise and having that equipment and that space to do it, and just the flow between the two zones and that. And I suppose we're just trying to find the right building and the right time. I was looking before COVID, but look, that kind of put the brakes on things because a little bit of what was the unknown of what would happen pre and posted. And then seeing this building had come up for rent. Had contacted the landlord, and as you said, when I came up, I came up and I was like, when I seen it in real person, I hadn't just passed it in a while, just that with COVID, and it was like boarded up, glass broken, but the shell was there, and sometimes just need that little bit of forward thinking and vision, and that to give it a go, because there's wonderful buildings here in Drogheda, and I know a lot of I play at the minute along West Street and various other things that have been closing down, but there is definitely opportunities there. I think it's great to bring life back to a building that was maybe at the front here, the retail park, that didn't look great passing by as such, and you can show what you can put back into a life into a building. And now you can see the 3 floors of other business have taken over since we've came here, so we took the chance on it, and it's been brilliant for us. Brilliant location,
Brilliant. Well done. It's really, really good, and a credit to you and the team as well. So basically, like, client-wise, I mean, what's the comments? We spoke there before we started recording about back pain, knee injuries, ligaments and all that type of stuff. But what are the top 3, not problems, but like things that people come to you with on a regular basis?
Right. I'd say number 1 is low back pain. That is number 1 across the field. Every day, every week, we'll get calls, inquiries. Number 1 coming through the door. I think then second, you might be looking at a little bit of neck, shoulder, and then you're probably going into kind of more knee type of injury. In terms of sport, hamstring number 1, probably more through GA involvement. But I think low back pain is probably number 1 kind of injury or problem or complaint that we try and help people with.
And what would the cause of that be? Like, obviously I'm thinking, like, if people are sitting at a desk all the time, even working from home on the laptop, should they invest in a proper chair? Should they get up and do more exercise? What would your suggestion be?
Yeah, I think for people who sit at home or have an office, we call it an office job, I think your challenge with that is it's on multiple levels. I think it's what you do during your workday. When you are at the desk, you are trying to move. The number 1 advice we have is your best position is your next position. So if you're able to move often, that's what's going to kind of break that kind of muscle tension, fatigue, and that endurance that the body's kind of under pressure. So sometimes we say to people, look, if you set a post-it on the screen, move every 30 minutes, or you have smartwatches today, have a thing to give you a little bit of buzz and go, you've been active for 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And that's just get up and move, stand around, go down to the toilet, down to the water cooler, do a little bit of stretches and that at the desk. So I think when you're in work, it's trying to move as often as you can, take them movement snacks as often as you can. That's easier said than done when you're busy or into a project or in office. You don't want other people looking at you as a pen. So there's a few different variables on that, and that's probably where something like a standing desk or has come into play, because it gives you the ability to move position. So I think that's a really good idea. Sometimes that depends on space, employer, and home environment. But if not, you can just stand up and do it yourself. I think then outside of that, you have to think of the bigger picture and goes, what am I doing outside of work? So if I've been driving an hour and a half to work, sat at an office for 6 or 7 hours, drove home, family work to do, life, cook dinners, there's not a lot of time to do a little bit of movement and exercise. But if you can able to counterbalance that sitting throughout the day with some movement exercise, that could be a walk, 20-minute walk, could be a run, jump, whatever it is, you have to think about it like a weighing scale. That if you've sat all day, then there has to be something movement to do it. So trying to break it up during the day, and then when you're outside of work, can you be active? When can you find that window just to do a little bit of movement and activity? I think if you're nailing them two, you'll go a long way.
Right, okay. That's a free top tip there.
Yeah,
thanks, Mick. So if I was to walk into you guys tomorrow and say, right, by looking at a person, can you tell what would need to be done as in the consultation, rather like if I come into you and says, right, I have a small issue with my knee, which you didn't know about, but it's not really that sore. But if somebody comes in for a consultation, can you read people and sort of, say, well, look, I reckon you should be doing this, or did you ask them what they really need themselves? You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Look, and that's ultimately what we're here to do, and what we're experts in. We're here to find the root cause of your issue, and how we'll do that is if we come in, look, we sit down, we have a chat like we're having now, but we'll call it a lot of questions we're asking. We're trying to get a little bit of read on your history, how it happened, when it's sore, and that gives us so much information then in terms of possibly what type of injury you've had, even before we test or move things onto the bed, onto the next level. But I think an important part of that is we try and look at you as a person as well, and then look how that's affecting you, what you're not able to do, what your goals are, where you're trying to get back to. Because I think like this, it's a relationship. In essence, we have to work together to achieve where you want to get to. I think then the next stage of that is we have some movements on the bed where we test that area. We have a hypothesis maybe of what possibly is wrong, and then we try and confirm that with a few kind of tests and movements on the bed, and we're able to kind of build a logical kind of idea of what it might be. We've probably developed that on a little bit more here, probably from my time just working with elite athletes and into sport, where we have testing equipment that's widely used, and we're able to do strength tests. We get objective data, so we have fit called valve technology, and we're able to maybe look at you squat and see how strong, how well you're moving. We can test your quad strength, and we're able to go, look, you actually have a deficit compared to right to left. You're 25% down on this knee, so we can see your quad needs to be built up. So we're trying to get some objective results in and give you a marker to work towards, and then it's about what plan do we put in place. After that, there'll be some hands-on stuff, but then also definitely exercise. What can you do when you're not here? That's the kind of key. You're in charge of your own body. It's a tremendous ability to recover, and sometimes you have to empower it, and sometimes there is hands-on stuff. But I think the more what you can do away from here, movement and build strength, you're going to go a long way, so that's kind of putting that all together. We hopefully able to tell you what's wrong, where you want to get to, and how to get there.
Yeah. The industry's changed over the years. Like years ago, people went to the gym and done weights and sort of, on the bicycle and treadmills and stuff. Like looking around at what you're saying here is there's actually more support. You just don't go to a gym anymore. I mean, there's people there saying, well, look, if I'm lifting weights, you shouldn't be doing that, Michael. You should be lifting it like this. And they're there to help support you, as you say, for what suits you. So, I mean, have you seen big changes since you started like years ago when you first got involved in the industry?
Yeah, I think as we'll call it, the whole health and fitness industry, I think it's changed, and I definitely think it's as a way. I can definitely see it definitely from a younger generation. It's more part of a lifestyle. We can see so much more younger kids interested in strength training. Again, in theory, how they look. We can see development of a lot of amazing gyms even around the town in terms of small group personal training. We have our own personal training here, and we see people involved into that. I think the knowledge around it, obviously social media brings very good stuff, and there is some really excellent people involved, and you get lots of tips, but then there's the other flip side of that where I think we've seen the other downside of where people are trying to train copy be someone on Instagram, and they're breaking down, getting injured. There's lots of programs out there, particularly with Hydrox being such a popular kind of fitness event at the minute, but people are kind of trained like professionals while they're amateurs. That's when this disconnect, and we see injuries and that through that. But I think as an overall, I think it's a positive that more people are modern lifestyle trying to move, trying to be active, and I think whatever they enjoy doing, and that is great.
Yeah, it's amazing that you say that lots of young people now are sort of going to gyms and stuff. Like my son is 20 now in February, and like any spare time he has goes to the gym. I mean, like that's completely changed. That's flipped on its head from years ago when we were, the last thing we do is go to the gym. We go out somewhere else or whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's all about staying healthy, and as well as that with social media as well. They're trying to look at probably the favourite actor, the favourite sort of singer and stuff like that. So that social media has such a really big impact, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and I think you can see that even from, I call it, my football again, playing up through the years. You can see just the different changes in generation, and I know they were finishing up their last couple of years, all the young lads. So it was the most important was getting to the gym as opposed to a night out. I think that is a really positive. As you said, I think it's just that balance between. That social media effect is like who they're following and why, and the aesthetic, and you don't have to look like a movie star to be fit and healthy. That's the way. In comparison isn't always ideal. I think that's what sometimes we need to be cognizant of that, and have someone to guide them and teach them through that, and just in terms of how to just generally be healthy and feel good, and it doesn't have to look like an Instagram. You don't have to look like an Instagram model to achieve that. That sort of way. I probably see the people who do that. Definitely able to stay. I can feel good and injury free.
People listening to this, especially young people, what advice would you give those young people if they want to get involved in the industry? I mean, I know you came from a sporting background. Does that necessarily? Do you have to come from a sporting background? Or I know in colleges now they do sort of courses and all this on sort of health and well-being and all that type of stuff as well. So what advice would you give to somebody interested in getting into something similar to what you do?
Yeah, I think, as you said, look, naturally coming from a sporting background, I was always interested in injury. Got in before surgery myself, went and seen the local physio, and that kind of, I suppose, what treat my interest in how the body moves and injured, and how to get back, and that's what kind of ultimately guided me to where it was. Older sister Adele, the real Bren's family, she's a physio as well, so there was another thing to follow into that. But I do think anyone that's interested, there's so many, even from when I graduated, getting old now, how many years ago was that? 50? I'll give you, so we go 16, we'll say 16 years ago. There's so much more avenues in kind of sports courses, and you can feel them out, and so much more avenues, particularly to get into physio, and no, definitely don't have to be into sports to be physio. If you enjoy, I think, helping people, I think that's the number one thing. Enjoy how the body moves, and interested in that. And there's so many branches that you can go out to. Obviously I'm involved in private practice, which is mainly kind of muscle injuries and helping people. There is amazing people to do work in other branches of physio in the hospital set in terms of neurological post-stroke, and that. And I think it's to get out and sometimes experience it. And we get a lot of inquiries from TY students. We get 30-40 easily a year from multiple people. Just can we do a week's placement here? We're very interested in it. So we've seen that like every year just keeps getting more and more. That we get so many inquests, and that, I think if you can get in to just shadow someone and see what it looks like and feels with it, particularly with the advent of transition year, which is great. And then follow that kind of course. There's many paths to get. You don't need really high leaving cert points, which are quite they're quite high, but there's so many avenues to it now, which is amazing.
So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how can they do so? What social media do you use? And Yeah, if anybody just wants to get in touch or just phone you up and ask a question and stuff like that.
Yeah. Look, I think probably best way, our website has all our information there. That's www.physioperformance.ie, and our best contact number here is 04198 77059. And then you can we're kind of prominent on Instagram. Is our main thing. We give away lots of kind of tips, lots of exercise tips there, lots of advice. A lot of time me looking like a fool trying to break this TikTok world or Instagram world. Grab attention these days. Can reach out to us through DMs and that, and we'll always get back to you. But I think it's to give us a call, send us an email then to info@physioperformance.ie, or any kind of link. We're available and all of them, and we'd love to help.
Mick, pleasure talking to you, and continued success in the future.
No, brilliant. Again, thanks a million for the opportunity and that to speak today.